Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, I'm recording this in May of 2025. So as you guys know, this past year has been marked by my return to the dating scene, in large part because of how bad it was when I was all alone during the heat wave last year. I had a really rough time navigating that all alone. And come to think of it, there are nice things about the hot weather. But of course, hot weather is not the only wrench that life could throw at us. And it'd be nice to have another person to navigate it with, right? Hot weather, economic problems, uh, illnesses, heartbreaks, and all sorts of deaths in the family. All of those things could be a lot easier to navigate if there were two people steering the ship, right? That's what I wanted to say. But I noticed there's yet another benefit, and the best way to describe this benefit is to talk about a time when I didn't have it. I was teaching at a technical college in Seattle, Washington, Washington Technology University, and I had gotten gypped, scammed. What had happened was I had signed up to teach two different classes. I signed up for one. The other class, we weren't sure if we would have enough students. And the last day of before the semester, my dean frantically called me and asked if I would like the second class as well. And I was more than happy to do that. And I got to the classroom. There were only two students, but you know what? I really enjoyed every one of the classes that I taught. And so it was only a week into the class did my dean frantically call me and tell me that I was only going to get paid half as much for that second class, and that was a surprise to me. And what had happened was usually the policy is that if you teach a second section of the same class, you only get half as much. But this is a completely different class. As far as I was concerned, this is two separate contracts. And so I was upset, obviously. But the following day, I went to the classroom. I was in the classroom with the two students when my dean frantically wanted me to sign the new contract. He had called me in the week before to frantically come in. So we never really signed paperwork. And I might have talked to him I can't remember what I said to him over the phone, but there was nothing documenting it. And he called me out of the classroom to sign the papers. Like, he called me out of the classroom with my students in there. And long story short, I signed it under duress because I really loved all of my students. And you got to remember at the time, I didn't have a steady relationship. And that was a big mistake on my part. I just wanted to get back to the classroom. I was having a good time with the students. And I think my dean took advantage of that situation. After all, when he called me, he didn't say, "Could you come in right now?" Right? I would have had a lot more leverage had my students not been around me. And so now looking back at it, I really feel played. What really hurt was that not long after that, COVID happened, and it affected my unemployment check. So that mistake haunted me until summer of 2021. A mistake that I made in the summer of 2019 haunted me for 2 years in terms of pay. And so it really hurt, and it became a lesson learned. Now that I have several good friends, a girlfriend, and I'm seeing all these other people, I'm not as prone to make mistakes like that. Do I still love my students? Yes, I do, but they're not the entire world to me anymore. And if that were to play out today, I would say, I'm in the middle of class, excuse me, and I would finish up that class if I could, right? If they're going to drag me out of the classroom, that would be on them, but I would finish up that class if I could, and then have a stern discussion with the dean, right? And and I would be more than willing to stop teaching that class if need be, right? Chances are that it's probably not going to come down to that, right? And if the students are going to be disappointed, I'd probably let them know, it's on the school. They didn't want me to teach this for some reason. And so that would have been that. But at the time, the students were my entire life. Now, I also noticed that I'm a lot less willing to let students walk over me. Right now, we're coming to the end of the semester. I can't tell you how many times in times past before I started dating again, I'd have students who were multiple weeks behind, and oftentimes the semester it should have ended by May. I'm working 3 weeks overtime without pay, to catch up on all the students who wanted to be late and make adjustments. They had quote unquote deaths in the family. They had 10 grandmothers who had passed away in 2 years, right? They've gotten COVID 50 times, right? They should have died by now, right? And yet I still listen to entertain all of that because I love all the students. I didn't want to cause drama. Now that I have another love life, it's a lot easier to put up with. It's a lot easier to put up with having to put my foot down. Right. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.